developed country by 2047, and this is getting new speed and new resolve.
अमेरिका विश्व का सबसे पुराना लोकतंत्र, भारत विशाल लोकतंत्र, और इसलिए हम दोनों का मिलने का मतलब 1+1 2 नहीं, 1 और 1 11 होता है, और ये 11 की शक्ति, वो ताकत विश्व के कल्याण के भी काम आएगी।
US is the world's oldest democracy, and India is the world's largest democracy. So when India and the US come together, they make 1+1 11 and not 2. And this is the power of 11 that is going to work for the welfare of the humanity.
मैं राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप का, मेरे एक अच्छे मित्र का हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं कि हम फिर से एक बार प्रगति की राह पर नई ऊंचाइयों को छूने के लिए चल पड़ेंगे।
I once again thank my friend President Trump, and we together resolve that we will together march towards progress and towards prosperity for our nations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And he's doing a great job in India. Everybody talks about it. He's doing a really fantastic job. A great leader. Great leader.
मोदी जी बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं भारत में, और हर कोई इसकी बात कर रहे हैं कि वे बहुत बड़े नेता हैं, बहुत महान नेता हैं।
मैं आपका बहुत आभारी हूं आपके इन शब्दों के लिए, और मुझे विश्वास है कि भारत का हर नागरिक आपकी इस भावना का आदर करता है।
I thank you for your warm words, Mr. President, and I firmly believe that every person in India respects your sentiments.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thanks a lot.
Any questions, please?
Yes, President.
You are both very popular leaders in your respective countries. You have spoken about a common sense diplomatic doctrine. So what's a Trump-Modi doctrine that we should expect from the meeting?
आप दोनों ही बहुत popular leaders हैं।
Our words better and safer.
Well, I think more than anything else will be the unity. We have great unity. We have great friendship. He and I and our countries. And I think it's only going to get closer. But it's very important that we remain united as countries. We're friends, and we're going to stay that way.
President Trump, how are you going to fight China if you're going to be tough with India on trade? How are you going to beat China then?
We're in very good shape to beat anybody we want, but we're not looking to beat anybody. We're looking to do a really good job. We've done a fantastic job for the American people. We had a great 4 years, and we were interrupted by terrible administration, absolutely terrible. They didn't know what they were doing, and now we're putting it back together, and I think it's going to end up being much stronger than it was before, even much stronger than it was before.
प्रधानमंत्री जी आप हमेशा से May I? Yeah. President Trump, first of all, congratulations for the fantastic 24 days of your presidency. Historic and unprecedented decisions that you made, transformational reforms. I'm particularly impressed by the expose on USAID. And I would like you to share with us if you think USAID had a role in election interference in the US in 2020 and Indian elections in 2024.
So it could have had a role. There were a lot of bad things that happened in 2020. I think bad things happened in 2024, but it was too big to rig. We won by a tremendous margin. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions of votes. So it was too big to rig. But yeah, I think they probably tried. We're looking to go to a system now much different, where one-day voting, voter ID, and we have to do that. And paper ballots. We want paper ballots. And when they do that, we're going to clean it up very, very well. But we had a great 2016. We had a much better 2020 election. But bad things happened. And we had the best of all. We had, they say, the most consequential in history, 129 years. Most consequential. So it was a great election, and it gives me a chance to work again with the Prime Minister and India. We're going to have a great relationship together.
Mr. President, do you see
प्रधानमंत्री जी कल प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ने प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से बात की है और युद्ध को रोकने की बात कही है। आप हमेशा से सर
do you see India playing a role in your plan to broker a peace in Ukraine? And if I could ask you about a development in your hometown today, the U.S. attorney has resigned over the DOJ's request to drop the case into Eric Adams. Did you personally request the Justice Department to drop that case?
No, I didn't. I know nothing about it. I did not. I think that, just to answer your other question, we're just going to get along well. We're going to get along with all countries. We're going to do very well. We're going to be doing, I think, record business, record numbers. And we're going to work with India also. We have some very big trade deals to announce in the very near future.
प्रधानमंत्री जी कल प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ने प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से बात की है। आप दुनिया के अकेले ऐसे लीडर हैं जिन्होंने प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से मीटिंग की है, प्रेसिडेंट जेलेंस्की से मीटिंग की है, पहले प्रेसिडेंट बाइडेन से मिले और अब प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप से मिले। आपको लग रहा है कि जिस शांति की बात आप करते आए थे उसमें अब भारत रूस और यूक्रेन को युद्ध खत्म कराने के लिए अमेरिका के साथ मिलकर कोई नया रास्ता बना सकता है? और दूसरा, प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप भारत आने वाले हैं, प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन भारत आने वाले हैं, तो क्या भारत भूमि से शांति का संदेश जा सकता है? And Mr. President, what you would like to say about the Bangladesh issue, because we saw and it is evident that how the deep state of United States was involved to regime change during the Biden administration. Then Muhammad Yunus made Junior Soros also. So what is your point of view about the Bangladesh?
And what is the role that the deep state played in the situation in Bangladesh?
Well, there was no role for our deep state. It was. This is something that the Prime Minister has been working on for a long time and has been worked on for hundreds of years, frankly. I've been reading about it. But I will leave Bangladesh to the Prime Minister.
जहाँ तक रूस और यूक्रेन के बीच का लड़ाई का सवाल है, मुझे खुशी है कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने शांति के प्रयासों का इनिशिएटिव लेते हुए कल राष्ट्रपति पुतिन से बात की है। दुनिया का एक सोच रही है कि भारत न्यूट्रल है। भारत न्यूट्रल नहीं है। भारत का अपना पक्ष है और भारत का पक्ष है शांति। हम पहले दिन से ही, और मैंने राष्ट्रपति पुतिन को उनकी मौजूदगी में मीडिया के सामने कहा था कि ये समय युद्ध का नहीं है, और मेरा एक कन्विक्शन है कि समस्याओं का समाधान युद्ध के मैदानों में नहीं निकलता है, वो टेबल पर चर्चा करके ही निकलता है।
As far as the Russia-Ukraine conflict is concerned, I'm very happy that President Trump has taken initiatives to restore peace and had telephone calls with President Putin and President Zelensky. The world had this thinking that India somehow is a neutral country in this whole process, but this is not true. India has a side, and that side is of peace. From the very first day, I have been talking about the importance of dialogue and diplomacy and a peaceful solution. And when I met President Putin in the presence of media, I had told him that this is not the era of war. And I have firm conviction that problems cannot be resolved on the battlefield. The two sides will have to come to the negotiating table.
शांति के हर प्रयास का हम समर्थन करते हैं, और राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने जो इनिशिएटिव लिया है, मैं उनका हर सख्त समर्थन करता हूं।
We support all efforts aimed at establishing peace.
Can you let him translate, please?
Trump has taken to welcome it and support it.
I just want to add to that. We had a very good phone call yesterday with President Putin. It lasted maybe an hour and a half. It was excellent, and I think we went a long way toward getting a solution to the horrible war where so many people are being killed, especially soldiers on the battlefield. At least 1.5 million soldiers have been killed on a ridiculous war that would have never happened if I were president. But we've got a long way to, I think we've got a long way to solving it. Tomorrow there's a meeting in Munich, and then next week there's a meeting in Saudi Arabia, not with myself or President Putin, but with top officials. And Ukraine will be a part of it too. And we're going to see if we can end that war. That war is a horrible war. It's a vicious, bloody war. We want to end it. To your other question, that U.S. attorney was actually fired. I don't know if he or she resigned, but that U.S. attorney was fired. Okay, go ahead.
What is the role that you expect India to play vis-a-vis US competition with China?
Say
What
it.
is the role that you expect India to play vis-a-vis US competition with China and in your broader vision for peace in the Middle East?
US और चाइना के competition.
Well, I think we're doing very well in our competition with everybody. I think you're going to see a nation that really is going forward at a very rapid pace. Our economy is going to be fantastic. We're doing things to make it that way. We announced some very big elements today of success. I call it an element of success. Reciprocal tariffs, so that somebody charges us, we charge them the same amount, which has never been done in our country before. We've always been taken advantage of by other countries, and we allow that to happen foolishly. But we're not going to allow that any longer. So I think we're going to do very well. We've been doing they say the last 3 weeks was among the best 3 weeks ever for a start in a presidency. There's never been anything like it. And when you see what we've been able to do in 3 weeks, people are really amazed. Even the Prime Minister mentioned it. I think other countries are looking at it. But I just want to thank everybody for being here. This is a terrific man. We're going to make some wonderful trade deals for India and for the U.S. And thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so you were just listening in there on part of a meeting here, of course, between President Trump and the Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi. It was an awfully friendly meeting. They both spent a lot of time complimenting each other. They said they have the same goals and they are going to work together to bring prosperity and progress. They each referred to each other essentially as great leaders, and there was a lot of mutual respect here that you saw displayed between the both of them. Now, it sounds like there's a lot of conversation to be had here moving forward in terms of what trade will look like. The question was asked by a reporter to the president of how do you beat China if you're tough on trade with India? And the president went on to say, I'm not trying to beat anyone, and again reiterated his thought here that they're going to move toward a peaceful and prosperous relationship here between the two countries with some transformational reforms here. They also started the meeting with the president saying that it sounds like India has agreed to purchase a lot of oil and gas. And he went on to say we have more than anyone else. And he said that they've been friends for a long time and they're delighted to see each other again. Notable here from some of our reporters that were in the room is that Elon Musk is in the room. You couldn't see him in that shot, but he was in the corner of the room there. You also just perhaps caught a glimpse there of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, also the Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum in that room as well. So I do want to bring in some of our reporters here to help us break this down. Let's start with correspondent Mary Alice Parks. She is also in D.C. with Elizabeth Schulze in our D.C. bureau as well. We also have ABC News Shannon Kingston at the State Department and ABC News foreign correspondent Matt Rivers, who is tracking immigration developments for us in Mexico, because this is also a crucial part of this meeting in terms of the Indian migrants that have just been deported from the United States as well, and how that relationship will continue. But Mary Alice, I'm curious of your thoughts here, because again, we don't have a lot of the details hammered out here, but it was an interesting way to start here the meeting from the president to say, you know, they're going to be purchasing oil and gas here, to set it as a fact, and then sort of went into this very friendly compliment fest.
Yeah, he said, we are friends and we will remain friends. But of course, we know that they have all these tough topics to tackle, like you said, tariffs, trade at the center of all of that. We've heard the president just today talk about how he is not pleased that the United States still has this trade deficit with India, a big trade deficit with India. He's not pleased with the fact that India has put in place steeper tariffs on U.S. goods coming into India than the United States has on Indian goods coming into the United States. You mentioned immigration, another tough topic, but it was interesting, that moment where he talked about oil and gas. Of course, we know this president wants to expand oil and gas development in the United States where he can. I'm not sure many Americans imagine that he would also be encouraging oil and gas producers to export even more of that to the biggest buyer, to whoever would buy and sort of expand U.S. markets abroad for oil and gas. But that does seem to be President Trump's priority. And of course, I am still thinking so much about that moment earlier in the day when we saw Elon Musk also having his own meeting with Prime Minister Modi. I think so many questions for this administration and this White House going forward about Musk's role in U.S. foreign policy, as well as what will come out of that meeting and what came out of that meeting, as well as what will obviously come out of this meeting with President Trump. Kana.
Right. I know there was an early interest mentioned about Starlink, perhaps in India, some things like that. But Elizabeth, in terms of this trade deficit here and what we might be looking at in terms of what they finally come to an agreement here with, I think, what did he say? We have big trade deals to announce in the future, Elizabeth.
Right, and we're talking about a $45 billion trade deficit with India. And what these reciprocal tariffs that President Trump announced the government will start looking into today is essentially what that would mean is that for a country like India, it could be pretty heavily impacted. Right now, India's average effective tariff rate is about 11%. In the U.S., it's 1.5%. So a reciprocal tariff, Kana, would mean the U.S. raises that up to the same rate as India, around 11%. And essentially what that would mean is businesses that are bringing stuff over from there would end up paying a lot more. And I think it is really notable that we did hear President Trump acknowledge today, Kana, that there could be some short-term pain for American consumers because of these tariffs. But he says ultimately in the long run, he thinks prices will go down because domestic manufacturing will increase. Producers will be more incentivized to build stuff in the U.S. than in other countries. But that acknowledgement that consumer prices, the prices we all pay for day-to-day goods, could go up in the short term, especially at a time when prices are already going in the wrong direction when you look at the picture of inflation across the U.S.
Right, and how does he sort of quell the concerns from business owners and consumers in the meantime there as he tries to keep his promise to the American people? But also, Shannon, you know, we knew that China would loom large over this meeting, and a reporter again did bring up the question here. And essentially she brought up the idea of how do you beat China if you're going to be tough on trade with India? What does that relationship say for the wider region? And that's just the trade part of it, right? We didn't hear anything about any sort of defense framework or military cooperation.
That's right. And you heard President Trump say that, you know, he's not trying to beat anyone. He says he's going to work with India, with China, with anyone. But that's really something that's injected a lot of uncertainty into this relationship. But, Kana, you did mention the compliments here, because even though these two leaders were using translators, they very much speak the same language. You saw Modi really talking up Trump, talking about Make America Great Again, reminding him of the warm memories they've shared, the huge rallies they've thrown. So he's going to be using that relationship, or looking to use it, to really advance India, because sometimes, you know, when we get meetings like this, the problems arise from leaders being very different. Here, the challenges are going to come from the fact that President Trump and Prime Minister Modi are maybe too similar. They're both populists who are going to be under a lot of pressure to claw out wins from this meeting. And even though Modi has made some kind of symbolic, deferences to Trump leading up to this, the compliments, he can't be seen as having capitulated on everything when he gets home.
Yeah, certainly. No question about that. He has his own people to answer to. And what he said? He said this is the oldest democracy meeting with the largest democracy. And in his mind, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 in this scenario. 1 + 1 equals 11 for these two countries to come together and meet. But that also, Matt, we cannot overlook here the immigration issue. Of course, we know that President Trump campaigned on an immigration crackdown, and he is certainly following through on that. And that is impacting India. In fact, I think you told me, right, the number of 725,000 unauthorized migrants from India were living in the United States, but you think perhaps the number is even really higher than that now.
Yeah, because that number from the Pew Center, which is absolutely should be believed, was from 2022. And what we know is that since 2022, Kana, the amount of Indians that have been detained, and many of whom were ultimately released by Border Patrol, numbers well over 100,000. So there's even more people there now. And we saw a deportation flight flown from the United States back to the northern part of India just recently. So India joining the list of many other countries like Mexico and Colombia in all of this immigration crackdown. And I think what you're going to hear, or at least one of the unspoken goals, rather, from the Prime Minister of India, would be to make sure that India doesn't fall into the same boat as, like, let's say, Colombia, which had to go through being threatened with punishment from the United States in order to control migrant flows, given the number of Indians that we have seen consistently show up at both the southern and the northern border to the United States, that you can bet that's going to be a topic. And India, certainly, with all of these other issues that my colleagues have mentioned between the United States and India, Indian leadership certainly does not want migration to stand in the way of so many other issues that these two countries have to face.
Yeah, absolutely not. And Mary Alice Parks, I also don't want to overlook this question that was asked about USAID, because you had brought up earlier, India is a huge recipient of it. And the question that was asked was to the president, do you think that they interfered, USAID, do you think they interfered with the 2020 election in the United States, or perhaps the 2024 election elsewhere? And as the president started to talk about that, Mary Alice, he then sort of dove into what he would like to change in terms of United States elections. He wants one-day voting, voter ID, paper ballots. We have heard this Republican talking point before, but they seem to kind of be moving away from some of those ideas.
Yeah, largely because Republican governors don't want the federal government dictating how elections are run state by state. I mean, it's been a longstanding tradition in this country that states get to administer their own elections. That's a part of how elections are kept safe and secure, how ballot counting is kept safe and secure. So it's going to be really interesting if Trump and if Republican colleagues on Capitol Hill try to push a new version of a voting and elections law, ahead, as they've talked about. And very interesting that he punted on this question of foreign aid. No doubt he is taking a negotiating tool off the table after having totally froze foreign aid across the globe. This was a way that past presidents had been able to negotiate and leverage soft power with other partners and allies around the globe, especially developing countries. And so no doubt that's going to be a big part of his conversation with Prime Minister Modi today as well.
And certainly, just lastly, before we go, we know that Ukraine came up as well. And we heard from the prime minister, who said that he spoke with both President Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. And he said that people think India doesn't have a side in all of this. No, we have a side, and our side is peace. So we'll certainly watch very closely as these two leaders work together. It's such a pleasure to speak with all of you, Mary Alice, Shannon, Elizabeth, and Matt. Thank you for being with us. And the news never stops here, and you can find us anywhere you stream live news. If you're on the go, we're on the ABC News app and abcnews.com as well. I'm Kana Whitworth. Thank you for streaming with us. There's more news straight ahead.
Here you leave today and enter
a world of galaxies.
A world of speed.
A world of other worlds.
For whatever you love, infinite worlds await.
Welcome to the Hollywood Bowl.
Lion King was a huge part of my childhood.
This is the first time we actually sing these songs together.
Lion King cast members from past and present come together on one stage. The Lion King at the Hollywood Bowl, now streaming only on Disney+.
My game, my rules.
We have the power.
You wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are.
I'm going to Disney World.
sounded like nothing else sounds.
His songs have been sampled by tons of artists.
He opened the portal like, oh yeah, come this way.
I'm 110% ready to fall in love.
Tall, handsome, smart. He's perfect.
Time just stood still.
It's kind of already sinking in that these other girls are dating my boyfriend.
Everybody just really wants Grant, and we're all fighting for his love.
You act like you don't care.
He knows how I feel.
I know I'm in trouble.
Everyone's so mean.
I did not know how hard this was gonna be.
What's good to watch, read? Where can I get a great deal on what I'm just dying to buy? Oh, it's all right here. GMA Life. All the exclusive and buzziest celebrity good stuff. Deals and steals with amazing savings and the coolest lifestyle tips from Good Morning America.
I love that so much.
GMA Life. Streaming weekends on ABC News Live. Your weekend just got a little better with GMA Life.
Girl, why are you so sweaty?
Let's go, Lori!
This is good because it's high stakes, and that's the kind we like.
Disney and Pixar's Win or Lose. Available February 19th, only on Disney+.
All right, the high-stakes talks between President Trump and India's Prime Minister. I'm Kana Whitworth here in Los Angeles, and that is our big story today. The president is sitting down with Prime Minister Modi at the White House, and now their discussion on issues including tariffs and immigration could test the two leaders' relationship. And in our spotlight, the potential financial trouble for Elon Musk's Tesla. Our panel weighs in on shares of the company plummeting in recent weeks while Musk pushes Doge spending cuts. All right, we start here with our big story. President Trump holding a bilateral meeting with India's Prime Minister today at the White House, expected to have some high-stakes talks on issues including tariffs and immigration. Analysts are saying that a major goal of Prime Minister Modi's visit is to avoid tariffs. The president has recently imposed on other countries in his second term, and the two leaders are set to hold a joint news conference after their private meeting, and we'll bring that to you when it happens. But earlier today, President Trump signed an order calling on his administration to evaluate potential reciprocal tariffs on each U.S. trading partner. And here's what he had to say about India.
India traditionally is the highest, just about the highest tariffed country. They charge more tariffs than any other country. And I mean, we'll be talking about that. But again, whatever they charge us, we're charging them.
So immigration is also expected to be a major sticking point for President Trump and Prime Minister Modi today. In fact, there's a Pew Research Center report that shows that as of 2022, about 725,000 unauthorized migrants from India were living in the United States, and that is the highest number from a non-Latin American nation. And just last week, a U.S. military plane carried more than 100 deported Indian migrants back to India. ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks is joining me now for more on this. So look, Mary Alice, they covered a wide range of topics in this meeting. We really knew it was going to be focused heavily on trade, but we heard from both of them on several things. And again, reiterating here that this meeting started with the president saying India is going to be buying more oil and gas from the United States.
Yeah, Kana, look, the backdrop of this meeting, that trade frustration. We heard President Trump say that he is frustrated that the United States has a trade deficit with India, that we are buying more Indian goods than they are buying American goods. He's frustrated with the tariffs that India has placed on American goods coming into India. And so that backdrop, clearly Trump sort of starting off with tough negotiating tactics. Their relationship is so interesting. During Trump's first term, the two really got along so well, frankly, because they have really similar styles, really similar politics. These are two men that are fervent nationalists, populists. The big question now, will that relationship sort of clash? Will it change? How do two nationalists protect their national interests while still getting along? They got a lot of questions to that effect. Can they still counter China together? Do they still want to try to counter China together? Will they still be able to get along if they're protecting their own country's trade interests? And yes, that was very interesting. Trump saying that he expects India to buy more American oil and gas. We know it has been a priority of this president to expand oil and gas production in this country. Interesting that he also wants American oil and gas companies to then export that oil and gas to other countries, to the highest bidder. I'm not sure all Americans knew they were signing up for that, but that is interesting as well. We know that they still have a press conference to go. So they took a lot of questions there from reporters, but they are still planning to hold a press conference after they wrap their bilateral meeting, Kata.
Yeah, they certainly are. And he again said that they have big trade deals to announce in the future. So perhaps we learn a little bit more about it at that press conference, as you alluded to. Mary Alice Parks, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. I want to bring my big story now to our panel. So joining us today is our ABC News contributor and president of Next Gen America, Christina Sinsoon Ramirez, ABC News political contributor and former Republican congressman for New York, John Katko, former assistant secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security, Marcia Espinoza, and former Trump White House Deputy Director of Communications, Roma Daravi. Wonderful to see all of you. So actually, Marcia, I'm curious about your thoughts on the immigration part of this meeting, because we've been speaking with Matt Rivers, who's been covering immigration heavily for us down at the southern border, and he notes that the number from Pew Research is from 2022 of 725,000 unauthorized migrants from India living in the United States, and that's the highest number from a non-Latin American nation. So, Marcia, first of all, he thinks that number's higher, and he also thinks that he doesn't want the immigration issue to be at the forefront of what these two leaders are talking about right now.
So, yeah, immigration is certainly going to be an issue here, along with other things. But, yeah, the number of Indians in the U.S. Here illegally was high. The Biden administration did a lot of groundwork to try to work with that country. So this is something that they are definitely going to probably use as some negotiation tools. I would also question, it appears that Elon Musk had his own meeting with the prime minister before Trump. And it's unclear if he met with him in his personal capacity or as a government agency. And even the president didn't know the answer there. So wondering what he talked about as well, and what the outcome of both those meetings will be.
Certainly wondering about that, too. And actually, it was hard to see, but we have some notes from the press corps that Elon Musk was also in that meeting in which we were able to watch the prime minister and the president. And we know that some people were even bringing up the topic of Starlink, perhaps, in India. But also, John, the question was asked about China. We know that China is going to loom large over this meeting, whether it's spoken out loud or not. And the question was asked, how do you beat China if you're tough on trade with India?
Well, it just seems like everybody is looks at China, and China wants to be everybody's best friend. India's best friend. India cozies up to China, they cozy up to Russia, they didn't denounce Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and now here we are, India's cozying up to the United States. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic to see what, if anything, comes from this. But here's a cold, hard fact. There is a trade imbalance with India, and a lot of it has to do with a big import tax it put on our products. So if Trump is serious about having a level playing field with our international trading partners, he has to whack them with reciprocal tariff. If not, he's not being true to his word. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out. But there are two big egos involved. They all seem to be trying to massage each other's egos. But the bottom line is they're not good trading partners with us right now.
Well, right. And as Elizabeth Schulze has pointed out to us, that the tariff rate from India is at 11%. So we're talking about some $45 billion more in imports. And that is astronomical. And in the meantime, Christina, we know that the president is going to have to make an effort here to quell the concerns of consumers as well as business owners if some prices might be rising here in the interim.
Yeah. And what he openly admitted is that prices could go up, and he said for a short term, but it also could be long term. We don't actually know. We do know we're seeing inflation rise. It rose faster in December and January than anticipated. And a new poll out shows that 66% of Americans believe Trump is not focusing enough on lowering prices. Instead, we're seeing him use his executive power to rename the Gulf of America from the Gulf of Mexico, getting rid of paper straws, and of course, pardoning 600 convicted insurrectionists, some of who assaulted police officers. So I think there's a lot of folks, moderates that I've talked to, some that even voted for him, that are starting to question, I voted for you to lower prices and deal with inflation. I don't see you doing that.
Well, and so, but also in terms of that, though, lowering inflation, I think that there are some people that voted for Donald Trump that might be willing to wait it out, and that might be in support of some of those things that you just mentioned. But also, Roma, I think that they started the meeting here, again, with the president saying they're going to be buying more oil and gas from the United States is a really big deal. And I know that you've been watching in the direct concern here of how do we get India to buy more oil and gas from the United States and sort of ice out Russia a little bit in that term.
Well, India is a wonderful partner to the United States, but they need to remember who the evil people are around the world. And so the pressure that President Trump is putting on India today is friendly pressure, but it is real because if India is relying on Russian oil, they're enriching Russia. It's the same thing when we have countries relying on Iran for oil. You are enriching Iran. These nations are foreign adversaries. They follow the money. And so if they don't have money, they cannot act in terror. If we strip Iran and Russia from the billions of dollars they're making on oil, they will not be able to carry out these terrorist attacks all over the world. We're really suffering because our own allies are relying on these foreign adversaries. So it's about time to be tough on our allies. They are our friends, but they need to come back to the table and remember who their true friends are. One other thing I'll add is that the U.S. Overall has $370 billion going out the door on tariffs to other countries and only $57 billion coming in. That's a huge gap. So we need to shift that around and make sure that we're not giving out more money than we're taking in.
And that highlights something that we've heard from the president here over and over again in recent weeks, that he feels like other countries have been taking advantage of the United States, and he does want to put that to a stop. All right, Christina, John, Marsha, and Roma, always good to see all of you. And coming up next here in our Spotlight, the potential financial trouble for Elon Musk's Tesla. Shares of the company plummeting in recent weeks while Musk pushes Doge spending cuts. My panel weighs in.
See you later. Mr. Lee.
Hi, Zoe.
How can I help you today?
Do you know if there's a less expensive option for my new Medicare prescription?
Medicare? Really? I might have to see some ID, Mr. Lee. Here, let me check on that for you. Okay, so I'll give your doctor's office a call and then
This is not just help with a Medicare prescription.
Thank you, Zoe.
Anytime. Bye.
This is the human kind of help. Walgreens.
Agassi, Kraft.
The couple that plays together?
Slays together. Roddick, Bouchard. Andre, it's going to be great to see you lose. Pickleball Slam 3 is here. Former teammates turn bitter rivals. I'm coming to take my trophy back.
I'll be facing one of the greats of the game, and also Andy Roddick.
Legacy, rivalry.
I feel like all three of them are pretty old.
Pickleball Slam 3, Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, only on ESPN.
Here you leave today and enter
a world of galaxies.
A world of speed.
A world of other worlds.
for whatever you love. Infinite worlds await.
My game, my rules.
We have the power.
Hey, good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Good morning, America.
You don't just see it, you feel it.
I'm in. I'm in.
I'm in too. I am in. I'm in.
I'm in too.
I'll be here.
All right, welcome back in today's Spotlight. Elon Musk suffering billions of dollars in losses due to a steep decline in shares of his Tesla electric car company. Tesla's stock price has actually plummeted after reaching its all-time high in December, so now it's down about 16% since President Trump was sworn in on January 20th, which vaulted Musk into a prominent role in the federal government. So I want to bring back my panel here, Christina, John, Marsha, and Roma. And, you know, Roma, Elon Musk took several questions from reporters yesterday yesterday, kind of for the first time. And a lot of the questions did surround both transparency, but also concerns over conflict of interest, which he tried to placate. But I don't know that what he's saying is doing that. It seems like these questions are still mounting.
Well, this is a story that the media is trying very hard to push, this idea of a conflict of interest, which we haven't seen. So, frankly, I think the fact that Elon Musk being behind companies like SpaceX and Tesla that are hugely innovative and involved in the government in some ways. Currently, SpaceX, I believe, has a contract with NASA, one of their biggest contracts, proves that he actually is the man for the job, that we need more innovation and we need this kind of thinking inside of the federal government. There's a new story, which is why we're talking about this today, that there's some $400 million contract that he's involved in. He has said point blank, I don't know anything about that. So there is nothing new coming out that he is gaining. He is solely focused on putting his own personal time and money to help save this country.
Yeah, and so, Marsha, I'd love your thoughts on that, because, again, we hear from also the president who pushes back on the idea here that there would be a conflict of interest. And he also says, you know, we wouldn't let Elon Musk be involved in something that they would consider a conflict of interest.
Yeah, in the short time that Trump has been president, we certainly haven't seen him abide by any of the same rules or norms or laws that other administrations have. And the fact remains that there was a line item in the State Department's budget for $400 million for armored Tesla vehicles. Mm-hmm. It's since then been removed, but it does seem like there could be a conflict of interest from the guy who's running the Department of Government Efficiency that's supposed to cut waste, but has now accessed the Treasury Department database. And the fact remains here that there needs to be some accountability here. Congress is the one in charge of making laws and appropriating money. So wondering if anyone is going to be looking at that or even held accountable here.
Well, we know that there's 14 states, Christina, that have filed federal lawsuit against the president and Elon Musk, sort of challenging his role specifically in Doge.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk has received $15 billion from the federal government for his various companies, making him one of the largest recipients of federal governments and contracts of any company in the United States. $8 million a day is how much Elon Musk's companies receive from the federal government a day. $8 million. You want to talk about a conflict of interest. You know, if he were an actual federal employee, there were questions asked at that